Hello, Internet. Today we're going to be looking into a few tools that are going to be coming with the Windows 10 Creative update. So Microsoft has been pushing this a Windows 10 update that's supposed to be coming out in the next month or two. They haven't announced when, but they've been really pushing it as sort of the creative update. They're even calling that in their advertising. And so what I wanted to see is one of the things they're pushing really big is some of their 3D tools. So they announced Paint 3D and a few other tools. I want to see if we can use those for our Unity project or really any game editor. I think we can, but I want to see how well they work. So I've got them here. I'm running the Insider Preview, which has a beta copy of both of these tools. So they're not complete yet, and they definitely still have their bugs. But it seems like it's an interesting thing to play with, because traditionally you'd need like Blender or something very expensive to go and do 3D modeling, and this comes directly with your operating system and is, from what I've seen, supposed to be significantly easier, and some of the features look really cool. So we're going to play around with this and see what we can get to happen. And so we're going to be looking at two tools. Paint 3D is sort of like the classic Microsoft Paint, but in 3D. So you can edit and create 3D models and then paint on them. The other tool is called 3D Builder. I don't know much about this, but it appears to be much more focused on 3D printing and architectural stuff. You can see this one has measurement, whereas the other one is just a flat sketch pad. So this one you can actually automatically export things to a online 3D printing service and actually get them delivered to your house as 3D printed objects, which I might try that just to see what happens. We'll see. So we're going to start with Paint and see where things go. So the first thing you get is there's all of these options up at the top. You get a few different brushes, and I believe you use these to paint textures onto your model. You get some objects. So like we get a woman and a few other things. And you can do normal 3D stuff. You can yaw, pitch, or roll, or whatever. And you can also change the distance there. So you can drag it in these two dimensions, and then you can also edit that Z dimension. So you can drop that. There's some basic 3D primitives. It looks like we've got the cube, the sphere, the cylinder, the capsule, the donut, and then the cone. To place them, you just click and drag and drop, which is actually fairly easy. And then you can get, I see. So you can make it any shape. I was assuming it would be a donut normally, but actually you can do all kinds of funky shapes. So this is still flat against the plane. I'm just stretching it out on only one direction, sort of like a rubber band. That's kind of interesting. Could probably make like a mouth or something with that. Obviously, like most tools, if you hold Shift, it's going to lock and scale both in the same dimension. And I believe this is Control, which lets you do an in-place sort of resize. And then Alt does not appear to have any effect. So you can just drop that there and move it around, rotate it, do whatever. Then the really interesting thing they give you is they give you these two 3D doodling tools. So you can do, the example they do is a star. When I tried this previously, my star looked awful. But we can do sort of this weird shape, I guess. So if we do something like that, it's actually going to create a 3D model of that. So we can rotate it and do whatever. So I guess if you need some custom shape, you can do that. And then the other fun one is you can do it smooth. So we can do something like that-ish. And it kind of pulls together sort of the model from that. So I think this is kind of I don't know, interesting. You can do, this isn't going to allow you the precision that, like in 3D Builder, I was able to like precisely measure things. You can see it has a measurement down here. In Paint, it's very much abstract art. You get to do what you want to do. But the cool thing is, if you've played with like tools, say ZBrush, for example, you can actually paint on this. So let's say we want to recolor it, make it red. We now have a red arrow thing. I don't really know what we're going to call it. But let's say we also want to kind of like do a doodle or something on it. Like, hello. So you can do that as well. And it just kind of, it's clean and it works. I think that this part of the actual program is executed really well, because normally I hate all of this. I don't know if this will actually export to Unity. Haven't tried that. The only thing I saw was I came in here and kind of played around with the 3D modeling a bit, did a bit of drawing, and then saw that you can actually export it to a 3D model format. So we'll see. Some of the UI feels a bit clunky right now. Like you can see if I start drawing, and then, well, okay, the update works there. But if I, okay, never mind. Oh, it's stuck again. Update or undo doesn't always work, and that's a bit annoying. But you can do all sorts of, ooh, that's kind of funky. That's sort of like a paintbrush style. And you even get you get the brush strokes in there, which is actually pretty neat. So let's see if we can't undo that. There we go. And so you get 4, or at least currently you get 4 different styles. You get the matte, which will, let's do that with the paint, sure. So yellow, that'll be your matte color. Your gloss is what we were using before. And so this is going to feel a bit shinier. Doesn't look like it's any shinier, it just looks like it's a little bit darker. Not sure the difference there. You have a dull metal, which also looks, this one's definitely more shiny. This is going to have more of a specular tone to it, and then polished metal is going to be even more shiny, if I remember. So you get those 4 materials to kind of play around with, and you can do pretty much whatever you want with them. So we can, those colors do not work well, and the shading's a little bit funky here. But we can kind of mark up this, and then I want to see if we can actually import this into our Unity instance. And I'm hoping if it can keep these textures that we're kind of making, that would be sweet. That would be something that I would want to use. And once we finish testing this monstrosity, whatever the heck this is supposed to be, we can see if there's a few other features that this has. One of the things they've been pushing is this Remix 3D. Think of it like a social 3D modeling thing. So if we publish things up there, other people can see them and download them and edit them. So you can like push up models and download other people's models and then modify them. One thing I don't know is what the licensing on those are. I don't know if you can use them in your project or not. Honestly, I couldn't find any information on it. So not too sure. For now, I would recommend you stay away from that, just unless you find other information. That's just because you don't want that kind of issue to pop up. But other than that, this looks like a really fun place to play around. I don't know. We're just kind of screwing around, but there's more to this than just painting. We can obviously do all sorts of cool stuff like this, but we can also, if I want, I can add other 3D objects. We're also going to skip that because some of these other features are really cool. We can, this is the sticker-ish feature. And so what you can do here is say I want a star. You can click it and we just get a star and it just projects it onto the mesh. So now we've got this smiling star that we can throw on there. And we'll stamp it there. This is looking awful, but that's all right. One thing I haven't been able to get consistently is how to actually rotate your how to rotate your camera. There's a viewing option so that you get like a camera you can rotate that's sort of for previewing it. But you can't make edits like this, and it resets your camera when you try to. So I don't know how to get that back. But a few other things with these stickers. We've got this mustache here. I can make it 3D. And then it becomes just this like flat, like billboard style thing. So you can just kind of slap that on, but it will actually be 3D. So instead of being painted on like that, you actually get this graphic that you can kind of, like if you want to hang it off the front, like we're going to do, you can do that. This is going to be a little bit funky. There is sort of a mustache off the front of our arrowhead, I guess. It's weird, but keep with me. I don't have a plan, but I'm sure it'll come to me. After you get out of the stickers, first you can also import your own images. So they've got some here. So we can like project this. Looks like there's an opacity filter too. So you can change how opaque it is. But this way you could throw on like fur, it looks like. Or if you have your own images, you can browse for those too. I don't, so we're not going to. But if you do want to, you definitely, that's definitely an option, which I think that's cool. The next thing, text. You can insert text. Hello world. And it should, this was a little funky when I was trying to use it, but it should automatically create it. There we go. And so now we have, this is actually a 3D object. There's also an option for projecting it onto the thing. But this is a 3D version of the hello world text. Unity already gives you this feature, but this way you can kind of embed it into the side of your model if you're really ambitious. So we now have our hello world pointy star thingy-majig. What else is there that we can explore? I think this is mostly it. So there's a few other things. We can show the canvas, which is just a square. That's kind of like your painting canvas. All of your normal objects will actually start at that point. We've kind of moved things around so they're not there anymore. But that's by default, that's enabled. I turned it off just because I thought it was getting in the way and it was kind of confusing, especially when you're building objects right next to it because they kind of go through it. But that's about it. The only other thing is there's an environment effect. So like right now we're using sort of a dark sky, but you can kind of change that. And the cool thing is it actually does some illumination onto your model, and it actually changes the lighting your model is receiving. So you can see as I change these, it's not just the background that's changing. The entire appearance of everything is changing. Like now, these yellow streaks are very dim, but if I go back here, they're pretty bright and vibrant. So you can kind of play around with that as well. But for now, I think this is this is a disaster. But I think we can let's try to export this and see if we can't get this to appear in our Unity project so that we can actually use it. So we're going to save and export, and this is going to export a copy of it. Actually, before we do that, let's actually save this project and see if Unity can import these save files. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but I'm just going to open this and I will be right back once we get this saved in the correct spot. Okay, so we have the two things. You can't actually, one of the things you can't do is you can't export your save file. It just saves it as a project to wherever Paint 3D is. I don't know where that file ends up, but I can't choose that. So we did get two options. We got 3MF, which I don't know if Unity supports. I'm going to go with no. just because we didn't get anything out. But we also get an Fbx export. And so we get all the normal Unity import stuff. And judging by the looks, we actually get pretty much everything that we started with. We get all of our fancy text. Looks like that object worked. Oh, the text is literally a separate mesh for everything, which I guess is good if you want to animate it, but might be a little bit slow for rendering. So we can actually, yeah. So it exports each piece as a separate mesh. I don't think you can change that because I don't think this is the intended feature. One of the things, we have a transparent mustache here, which we're going to need to change because currently it's just using an opaque shader. So we get this weird thing out here because normally those would be transparent. So we can make that transparent and everything works fine except for the normal transparency issues. So if we turn on fade, now we've got our mustache there. I'm going to actually use a cutout just so that it can cast shadows. But for now, this is a fully working 3D model built with basic Windows stuff. And we can get it into Unity and everything just works. So you don't get, I'd say you probably don't get super high resolution. Like you can see, it's pretty pixelated here. But on the other hand, it's a free 3D modeling tool that is actually really easy to use and makes texturing super simple, especially if it's something that is like easy to paint. Examples would be like rocks, for example, and a few other things. Those kind of things are going to be super nice for this. Otherwise, organic stuff as well, so humans and things like that, that would work really well with this as well. What wouldn't be great? Probably like manufactured things, so technological things that need to be precise. Probably not a great source for this tool just because there is no precision. I don't think there's any way to get this precise, which is great if you want it to be like a natural thing, but if you want it to be a manufactured thing, it doesn't come off the same way. But the cool thing is I think this is going to get a lot of people who don't necessarily have 3D modeling experience to be able to make stuff, especially if they want to like build a game or something. You can, I mean, I just made a weird arrow thing, but you could turn this into anything you want. You can make a 3D character if you want. We will try and go on Remix 3D after this, but I want to just quickly go through the same process with 3D Builder, and then we'll open up Remix and see if we can't import that as well. So this is going to be a little bit more involved. I'll enlarge it, but you can do an ad of pretty much anything. You can see I was playing around with the World of Zero logo for this channel, and so we get this little icon. And the way this is made is actually really interesting because the way you do it, if I can find it, I still don't know this tool at all, but you can do an import and a load image. So let me just pick something quick. Let's do World of Zero with text this time. And then it just takes the alpha from that, and you get this. So you can actually just build a 3D model from any opaque image. And it does give you a few ways to do that. So you can, if you pass in a height map, for example, this is definitely not a height map, but you can see sort of what it gets you. If you do have a height map, you can actually generate a mesh from that. There's an edge, which I do not know what it means. I think that's probably a normal map. If you pass in a normal map, it might work. But honestly, I don't know this feature. And then there's a stamp, which is, if I am correct, going to, you know, not sure I know what this does. That's cool though. Yeah, let's use this. I have no idea what this is, but this looks sweet. So, oh, that's less cool. There we go. So, whatever this is supposed to be, we're going to use this. So we're going to import this image, and it is done. And then you can just kind of move it around like this. You have to use the handles here for that. I don't think you can just drag it. At least I haven't found a way. But it drags normally. One of the interesting things is this one actually has a snap feature. So it will snap to the lower left-hand corner here. So this kind of is a bit of snappier, which is handy if you need... Ooh. It's handy if you need precision, which I guess we want. We're definitely not going to get this 3D printed because I don't think there's a 3D printer in the world that can make this work well. But we can definitely try to get it into Unity. There's a few other things, though, that you can do. Some of them are, for example, painting. You get painting again with this. It's not as involved, I guess, as it would be in Unity, and you just paint faces. You do not paint like what we, or sorry, it's not the same as Paint 3D where you could like just paint on a model. I don't think you get that kind of ability, but you do get the ability to paint a face. So if we want to change like one of these spikes to be some other color, that's an option. What else do we get? There's some views. We can look at the wireframe, which I'm sure is insane. We can toggle shadows if we don't want those. Disable color if we just want, like if we're doing a 3D printing and we just want to see what the mesh is going to look like. This gives us that option. So what else can we do? Center the view? Sure. There's a few other fun things. This is going to offer a lot more mesh manipulation stuff. So we have like this simplify, which is going to reduce our mesh, which just cuts out a lot of that inner bit. And we can actually crank this up. So you can see this actually, it about cut our total number of vertices down by about 3 times. Obviously it looks worse, significantly worse, but that's because we told it to make it look worse. So that you can, with this, you can find some sort of middle ground of performance and looks. But we don't care about performance, so we're going to ignore that. There's a few other fun things. You get Boolean operations. So let's say I want a hole in the center of this. I can insert this cylinder, kind of drag it towards the center-ish. Ooh. And then what we can do, if I can figure out how to move my camera, is sort of snap. It actually does snap that horizontally. It's snapped to the center of that model. And we can kind of center it like that. And then what I want to do is, let's actually just select that. And I think you just hit subtract. And then now we have a hole. So this way you can actually kind of like, it's probably more useful for like engineering stuff if you want to make holes for like drilling something through or something. But this is also really useful if you just need to cut holes in things or join objects. There's a merge, and there's also an intersect. So what we could do, for example, is say we just want these red spikes. Let's stick a cube in here and kind of move this towards the center. and get that there. It's not really going to matter where it is because we're doing an intersection, remember? So it's just going to join everything together. Let's move over. And now what we can do is stretch it out in either direction. Like so. And then we want to do a intersection between two meshes. So you have to select the two over on the right side. You've got a list of the materials in your scene and then a list of the objects. So we're going to join our random image thing and then this. So if I just intersect those, merge is going to do like an additive thing where it's going to take both of them and then add them together. We don't want that. We want a ton of, we want a ton of little spikes. So if we select both of these and do an intersect, it's going to process a bit. And then we should see a bunch of little independent spikes there. This might take a bit just because of the complexity of the operation, but we'll see what we get. Hopefully it's interesting and doesn't just look awful, but we'll see. One or more objects are invalidly defined. Click here to repair. We may have broke things. So it did work, but it looks like it also added a bottom. So I'm going to click repair, see what it thinks it should do. It seems to have, for the most part, worked out though. We now have all of those fun spikes. So let's see what the repair does, and then we'll try to get this little object into Unity, and we'll see what that looks like. There are a few more operations I didn't go over. We can extrude things, we can split objects, we can do a few other things. There's a few other fun shapes. Play around with it yourself. It's going to be free and included with Windows 10, the creative update. If you have an insider preview, you should already have these. So you can play with them yourself. They're free and relatively easy to use. They're certainly easier than Blender, which has always been sort of Blender's Achilles heel. It's really powerful and can do a ton of stuff. I mean, it's got a game engine built into the graphics editor, but at the same time, it's got a game engine built into the graphics editor, which means it's kind of got that jack of all trades problem where while it can do everything, it isn't very usable. It doesn't have the focus that you need for something to be usable. Whereas this, neither of these are particularly intense tools. They can't do really awesome things. Like Disney is not going to use this to build their next movie. But at the same time, you can use this to, make something simple, or if you need to 3D print something or something like that. So this repair is taking ages. What have we done? I'm guessing it has something to do with that bottom red bit, but I'm not sure. All right, tell you what, while that works, let's go back here and actually open something off of Remix 3D. That's not right. How do we do that? I don't know. Apparently there isn't an easy option to do it. What's this do? Remix 3D. There we go. So this is what we wanted. I'm going to do a new project. And then we can pull in, so these are all various things built by random people. You can see who built them. So we should be able to actually try to get one of these in. I don't know the licensing restrictions on these. I don't know if you can use these in your project. And if you can, I don't know what the restrictions are. That may very well come down to the specific model. So let's just take something made by Microsoft. And can you just drag and drop? No. So you click download, and then it does a bunch of loading stuff, and then you get a record player. Cool. And so then we should be able to actually get this into Unity as well, with all the fun texture bits. So let's do that quick, and then we'll see if our other thing has completed finally. So BRB. All right, so it's importing our record player. Let's see what we get. I imagine this will go similarly to everything else. I forgot to name it when I hit it. I just kind of hit OK. So it's just kind of got the untitled name. We can drop that horrible arrow for now. But this is what we get, which honestly looks a little bit worn out just due to the lighting. I think that Microsoft is doing a little bit more saturation and stuff to kind of make the light pop. We don't have that in Unity. We need to do some color mapping and things like that. But it does work, and you can get it in. We've got a little shadow acne going on the record player. But I think, other than that, it seems to have worked perfectly fine. With this, you do not, it's all one piece though. So like we can't make the record spin or take it off or anything like that. But other than that, you can take things and import them into Unity, just like you would anything else you designed yourself. But again, check the licensing. Going to keep hammering that in because it sucks if you don't. So yeah, let's see if our 3D thing has fixed or finished. It hasn't, so I'm going to just cancel that. And let's see if this works even without fixing anything. So you'll see the 3D print option is here. So it's going to prepare it to print, which isn't going to work. Oh, it might. But this is going to be, Windows 10 has always had 3D printer support. But now they actually have a 3D printing service, which will be an online thing that you can actually get it shipped to your house. And they can make it with, I think, rubber, various plastics, and there's also some metal options. From what I saw, the prices were fairly high, but I don't know if that's going to go down or what the other options are going to be. But for now, we get this sort of thing. And so normally it would allow us to print. There's an order online button here, so you can actually go online and order it. And that will actually open up a web page and do all of that fun stuff. We're going to do none of that because this model can't be 3D printed. Instead, we're going to save it as, and I think we want an OBJ. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go do that. Okay, it looks like we actually do need to repair this. And I think that's just because, well, honestly, I don't know what it's because, but we cannot save, which means we're stuck. So, don't delete everything. We're going to delete the top layer. One thing that's a little bit funky, clicking an object doesn't select it. It toggles the selection, which is a bit weird. So we're going to do this. We still got that blue in the middle there, but that's fine. So we're just going to have to export this because the other one, for whatever reason, our intersection did not create a valid model and it got very angry. So let's try this again. We're going to export an OBJ, and that should be good. The first time I did that, it actually asked me to export the model, the material, and then the logo that we used as the mask. And so just as a test, I'm just using the OBJ. There's 4 formats supported here. Fbx is not one of them, which was weird to me, but I don't know why they haven't standardized on at least sharing the same thing. The only thing it does share is that 3MF, which might just be Microsoft format. I have never seen that format before, so I don't know what it's for. So hopefully Unity will load itself shortly, and we'll get that. Until then, let's play with this. What else can we do? Well, we can save it to a few other formats. Did it save it as an OBJ? Don't tell me you saved it as an OBJ. One sec. Okay, I just saved it over my object file as that. There we go. Let's try this. Yeah, okay, now it's gonna ask for the material. Yes, I want to override, and it's gonna, yep. So we have to replace all 3 of those. And now we should have an actual object file. And let's see what happens if I drag and drop. One thing that may happen is I suspect it's going to be quite small. So I'm going to scale that up a bit. No, I still don't see anything. Well, that's kind of disappointing. I wonder why. Huh. So I don't know what is causing that to break. So let's try the other formats. Ooh, that's interesting. It actually displays the proper preview for 3MF files. I like that. That's cool. Let's try an STL, which I believe an STL is just a standard print or 3D printer object. I believe you would use these for 3D printers, not for this, but we're going to try it anyway. And then we're going to also do whatever the other format is, PLY, which is another 3D printer format. So I don't think Unity supports these. I know it supports OBJ. So I don't know why we're running into issues there. But maybe I just did something horribly wrong. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. So, when all else fails, kill it with fire. I don't think that's what they usually say, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to remake our object, and we're just going to... I saved it as the wrong thing again. Dang it. So I don't like that it keeps reverting back to the previous selection, or the default selection. It doesn't save your choice. Don't so much like that, but we can work past it. So this should export all 3 of those again. We should be able to get back to Unity, and it should do something. No idea what, but I don't think we can use... Yeah, so the PLY and the STL, those are out. I don't think we can use those. But I would expect us to be able to use this. .obj.3mf. What the heck is going on? Okay, apparently there's bug in their save where it just keeps attaching 3MF onto the end. Not sure about that. That seems weird. Anyway, what we can do, this is really stupid, hold on. What we can do is we can actually export this to that 3MF format, like that. And then we can actually open it. We don't really care. Don't save. But I'll be right back. I'm going to go open it in here and then export it. I know that's silly, but we're going to do it anyway. All right. So we have it imported, and it looks similar. A little bit less good, honestly, in here. But I think that's just the lighting is a little bit funky. There's no shadows in this. But everything else looks normal. So let's, yeah, that's probably better there. A little bit better. So now we can actually save this out to wherever we were. Here, let's do a Fbx. So this should work. There's no reason this won't work. What I don't understand is why that other tool does not include this support natively. It seems really weird for two 3D modeling programs to have different file exports. I don't know why they don't share that code, but this works, or should work. We're going to find out very shortly if it works or not, because we're doing it. So hopefully we'll get this weird shape imported in, and then we can actually use it for something. Don't know what yet, but we'll figure something out. But come on. Come on. So apparently, saving really complicated objects takes ages. Because I've been sitting here for about a minute and a half now, and it's still going. I think it's working. I don't know if it's working, obviously, because there's no other indicator here. But we'll give it a few more minutes and see what we get. But maybe don't make a really complicated geometry with these tools yet. I mean, that's fairly obvious already. They're not really designed to do like super high poly rendering. Like ZBrush, for example, I think they can do like billions of polygons. We can't. But these tools aren't really designed for that. It doesn't really make sense for them to support that even. Well, supporting it is different than doing anything else, but it doesn't really make sense for that to be a major feature that they're working on, because nobody's going to use it. I mean, we're barely using that many polygons. Okay, I think it's done. Loading up the thing in Unity, that took a while, like about 6 minutes. So one of the cool things while I was waiting, I noticed you actually get, this is what those 3MF files. If you have preview enabled, you'll actually get a preview of the model in Windows, which I think is neat. So in your Explorer, you can actually see your 3D models. This doesn't work for Fbx, OBJ, PLY, or STL though, so it's fairly limited. I don't know why it doesn't work for all of them, but it doesn't. So if you do have those 3MF files floating around though, you can actually see a preview of them before you open them. So there's that. Has Unity finished? It has. Cool. And we can actually preview our little model there. We'll stick this at the center. And then we get this horrible contraption. So I guess the ruling is yes, you can use both of these for 3D modeling. I would recommend Paint more, just because one, it makes texturing super nice, and 2, it actually works. The 3D builder is really nice for 3D printed stuff, less nice for like our purposes. Mostly just because it doesn't support a file that can be imported into Unity. I don't know why the OBJ file we exported didn't work. That Unity should support those, but for whatever reason it didn't work. So we're kind of stuck with that cross conversion, which, I mean, it worked. And honestly, the length is probably due more to the complexity of this than it is to anything else. But still, that's a lot of hoops to jump through. On the other hand, that 3D builder is much better at mesh handling. So I guess if you really have to, my recommendation would be mesh edit in 3D builder. Build your mesh, as long as it's going to be a mechanical or a manufactured thing. I would do it in 3D builder because it's really good at that. It gives you precise measurements and lets you kind of exactly do what you want. And then bring it into Paint and paint it up. Or if you need to do organic stuff, just stay in Paint and just do it that way. Overall, you're not going to get the same kind of features you would from Blender or something. You're certainly not going to match like Maya and those other 3D programs. But those cost thousands of dollars, and Blender is way harder to use. It was more or less plug and play. Open it up and you can start doing things almost immediately. So it does make 3D modeling easier, but it is limited. So depending on what you need it for, it's going to vary whether you should use it or not. But for the most part, I recommend you check it out and see for yourself. See if it's something that you want to use. I think it's still in its infancy. There's still a lot of things that I want from it, like being able to do all those cool mesh subtractions and things in Paint. That would be cool. I want that. But also at the same time, the simplicity is really nice because it's so simple. It's hard not to. Normally with 3D modeling programs, you get lost in the features just because there's so much you can do. You can do like edge loops and all that other stuff. This program doesn't even show you the polygons. You have no idea how complex this model is, which for game development, that kind of sucks because it's going to affect your performance. But at the same time, you may not care about that as much. Because a lot of the games that at least I see people making, they're not graphically intense in the first place. So you're not really taxing the graphics card to begin with. And so that having those few extra polygons, I don't think that's going to have that much of an impact. So honestly, for indie devs, I think this is a big tool to use. For professional work, you're not going to touch this. But I don't think that was the intent. This gives you a nice, easy way to do 3D modeling. And it does that relatively well. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any feedback or any other tools you want me to check out, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. But that's it for now. So until next time, see you, Internet.